So what do you say we all just sit back for about 20 minutes and listen to me be a hater? Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk about some series I don't imagine I'm ever going to finish, or as some people like to call it, my hater files. Here's the thing: is recently I had a lot of requests to update my top 10 fantasy series of all time, and someone said, "You also did this one a while back called series that lost their way or I did not finish. Do you have an update for that?" And I was like, "Not quite, but I think I have something else that I would like to do." And this, of course, is, like I said, series that I don't plan to finish. Now, I want people to understand up front, I don't DNF books very often. I really do not. It has to be really, really painful for me to not even finish your book, but I will DNF a series. If I feel like the trajectory is going down with multiple entries in that series, I'll walk away. And these are some series here that I have walked away from, and I don't think I'll ever be going back to. So I want you to understand that maybe these series might be something that you love. I'm not here to just tear these series down. I'm just here to say these are ones that they didn't work for me, and I don't think I'll be returning to that land. So, guys, are you ready? Let's go ahead and kick it off with the most obvious one, because if you follow the channel at all, you know this one. This is, of course, the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, or the series I like to call that one kid you had that had all the potential in the world, yet still ended up in juvie somehow. This was a series that I thought the first two books were just mesmerizing. One of the best magic systems I've ever seen. Cast was phenomenal. Story was really, really just twists and turns. Could not stop thinking about it. Then book 3 happened, and I was like, it was good. It wasn't as good as the first two, but hey, middle book syndrome, no big deal. We can kind of carry on. Then book 4 happened, and it was the most jump the shark fantasy book I've ever read in my life. And if you've read it, you know what scene I'm talking about. To the point to where, guys, I had one book left in the series, and I'm not going to do it. I got the signed hardcover, ordered it early, and then by the time I had finished the series, I caught it because I was reading like one per month leading up to that, and I never went to Act 2. I kept telling myself I would at least finish it, but I have no interest. In fact, I have negative interest in finishing that series, and it'll never happen. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where this could have been one of an all-time series, but Brent Weeks just, I don't know. He felt like he had to M. Night Shyamalan this and say, hey, I got to have a twist when your story was fine and didn't need that twist. But it'll always be a great, great regret for me. Another one that I kind of started around a similar time was The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett. Now, both of these first two series I mentioned here, both had books on my best book ones list that I did a while back. Because both book ones in these series were just top notch. Some of the best stuff I've read in fantasy. And The Word of Man was just terrific. I loved it. Thought it was a really great idea. Book 2 was a different point of view character kind of thing, but I really still liked it. I liked how he was fleshing out his world. I loved this universe. I thought it was a really neat idea. Then book 3 happened. Yeah, okay, so first I was like, all right, I don't really know that I really had any interest in it ever as a character, really, enough to give her own point of view, whereas I liked Jardir and I liked Arlen. But with this character, it was like, okay, it's fine. But this was the book where it was like, does this want to be a fantasy series? Does this want to be like erotica? Because I mean, look, I'm a warm-blooded American male. I love a good sex scene as much as the next guy. But that's not Peter V. Brett's strong suit. And it just was too much in that book. But still, I said again, middle book syndrome. It's fine. Then I started reading book 4, and I actually DNF'd that book, which is rare for me, like I said. And I think the problem for me with that was, imagine you're reading Wheel of Time. And around book 8, Robert Jordan said, you know what, forget about Rand, Matt, and Perrin. Let's take this fourth cousin of this background Aiel character. That's what the story is going to be about now. That feels like what Peter V. Brett decided to do with that series. So yeah, just completely lost the plot. He just lost it along the way. And I don't know if it ever recovered. From what I've been told, it doesn't. I did tell myself, hey, why don't I just go ahead and read like the wiki page or something to see how it ended. Don't even have any interest to do that. So again, wasted potential is the theme with these first two series I'm going to talk about. This one's rather recent. This is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And it's one of those where I really liked book one quite a bit. Wasn't nothing, incredible. It wasn't, knocking me over or anything like that. But I thought it was really a new spin on fantasy that I really liked. Kind of tying it in with, with some history. Thought that was a really neat plot. But book two, by the time I got to the end, I just realized I didn't care about any of these characters, especially your protagonist. Now, I don't have to root for your protagonist to like your story. I can think some of my favorite books ever, like Gone with the Wind. I don't like the protagonist at all. But damn it, if I didn't want to see them succeed. Ren could have drowned in a lake in that book, and I wouldn't have cared. I just never really liked the main character to the point to where, but to the point where I was like rooting against her. I wanted her to fail. I just liked her so much. So it just kind of missed there. And from whatever, when everybody says that a book in a series is divisive, I always cringe because I know that means I'm going to usually come down on the side that doesn't like it. And that's what I heard about Burning God. It's very divisive. People who love the first two books were kind of about that book. So yeah, I just decided, hey, you know what? I know a lot of people love the series. Maybe it's just not for me. I'm going to save my time instead of reading another 600-page hardcover of a series that I am not enjoying. So there we go. No hate, obviously, from me. I just did not think that it was for me. Now, with the next one on the list, this is where I'll start upsetting some people. No, it's not King Killer. I can't, not complete King Killer because he can't complete King Killer. But it's the other fantasy darling. That is Lies of Locke Lamora. I'm talking about the Gentleman Bastard series. I thought Lies of Locke Lamora was okay. It was fine. It was good. I didn't think it was anywhere near what the pedestal that a lot of the fantasy community has it up on. But hey, that's cool. They love it. That's great. That's great. It was one that for me, I felt like Scott Lynch just couldn't keep his narrative in a common flow. Felt like he just wanted to jump all over the place. Like it jumped around more than a Tarantino movie. And from what everybody told me, it never got that good again. So I was like, well, this is another series that looks like it'll never be completed. So I'm not going to torture myself and read more books of a series I already was lukewarm on to begin, especially if you guys say you didn't think it got better after that. So that's why I kind of walked away from that one. Definitely no hate or anything like that. I know that a lot of people put this in the same category for me with Name of the Wind, where I just completely ranted on that, and I don't do a lot of rants on the channel. But no, it's nothing like that where I just actively dislike the book. I actually thought the story was pretty good. The characters were good. The dialogue was terrific. I just thought that his writing style it didn't flow for me. I need a story to flow, and it never really, really did that. So that's why I kind of walked away from that one. Now with this one, this will be the table flipping entry. This is Mistborn Era 2. Now I don't really know how table flippy people will be about that, because there are a lot of people. I think that Mistborn Era 2 does seem kind of equally divided, even amongst Sandersonians, as I call them. I think that most people come down on the side of liking, Sanderson fans at least, come down the side of really liking Mistborn Era 1, whereas Mistborn Era 2 is a mixed bag. See, and this is where it gets really, really weird, is a lot of people that like Mistborn Era 2, they hate Alloy of Law, but they love the other two books, whereas I really enjoyed Alloy of Law. I felt like it was like Firefly, I thought it was really, really good. And then I thought the second book was like, oh, God, and then the third, I was like, I just don't find myself caring anymore. And I think it's just because his main character, Wax, I think he's about as interesting as Dry Toast. He just really never... I think it's the most dry character that he's written, even over Raoden in Elantris. So it was just I don't really care anymore. I like the side characters better, but even the fun character in that series, he even tried to make him super serious and sad and emo, and it was just it just wasn't working anymore, to the point where it was one of those again where I was like, maybe this just isn't for me. So I don't see myself reading Lost Metal. I'll never say never on these things, but definitely won't be reading it on release day if I read it at all. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and put it safely here, because like I said, book 1 and then book 2 and then book 3. So yeah, I follow that trajectory, guys, and it looked like it was going downhill for me. But you guys that are excited for it, I hope you do continue to enjoy it. Now next up, guys, is going to be a Star Wars one. Now this could apply for the new Star Wars canon as a whole. Now this isn't just because, guys, that I am a Star Wars Expanded Universe, the original, aka Legends, a honk for that series. What this is more is, I love Timothy Zahn. I think that Timothy Zahn knows Star Wars as well as George Lucas and Dave Filoni. He knows his Star Wars, so he can spin a good story. But what I'm talking specifically about here is the Thrawn trilogy, or I guess it's a series now, because there's 4, 5, and 6 I think coming out. The new canon of Thrawn that he's doing. I tried the first book and it wasn't working for me. It felt like the comparison I make is like when that band that you love for the 80s is like we had this really big hit album in 1985, but in 2005, we're basically going to try to do like part 2 of that album. But we're going to do it with this new producer who wants us to do it not exactly the way that we did it before. So that's what it kind of felt like. It felt like it was trying to, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. And basically it defanged Thrawn for me. He didn't feel like the same character that he felt like in that original version of him. Now, it's cool seeing him be in the same timeline with Darth Vader and stuff. Sure, that's fun, but it didn't feel the same to me. And again, it just felt like a lesser version of that character I already liked. So that's why, I definitely won't be continuing with that. Because I said I wasn't really feeling the new canon at all. I tried like the first 2 or 3 books when they first came out. Said I was going to give it a fair chance. Wasn't really digging it. But I was like, but Timothy's on, I got to try it. And no. I'll stick with the original on that one. Next up, guys, this is kind of funny because I did Why You Should Read on the Inheritance Cycle when I first started this series. And I had no idea why this series got so much shit. And I started reading again. And it was funny that I made that video because I said I had never finished the series. I had only read like about 1.5 of the books. But this time I'm going to do it. And then I started reading it again, and I stopped in the exact same spot I stopped the first time. And that's when I had the moment of realize, maybe I'm too late for this. Maybe I'm too old for this. Maybe this just isn't clicking for me for that reason. So that's why I kept saying I had it on my Goodreads forever as a shelf, but not a DNF. I have no urging to go back to the series. So I think it's finally time to call it and say I'm probably never going to go back to this because I think that's one of those series that you had to grow up with. It's one of those that's hard to go back to as an adult and really, really get into. Now, I have no problems reading, a younger, like I could read Chronicles of Narnia right now and be happy, But with that one, I don't know. It felt like predictable, but then like when it wasn't predictable, it just felt like, you're trying too hard. So I don't know. It's just one of those, I just think maybe I aged out of what, the kind of the comfort zone for that series, I guess. So, I don't see myself ever going back to it. I don't have any ill will against it, obviously. I just think maybe I got a little too old for it because, the people who still do love it are the ones who said they read it in junior high. At least that's what the experience that I have. You might have read it for the first time at 50 and really liked it. I don't know, but for me, I have no calling to go back to it right now. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and call it and say I'm not going to finish it. Now, this next one shouldn't really be a surprise because I don't know why I was reading it in the first place. It almost felt... I don't know. I really don't have an answer for you about why I was doing it because I know that I was not the target demographic for Lee Bardugo with Shadow and Bone. But I said, hey, why not? I'm going to do it. I want to read it before this Netflix series comes out because that's what I do. I knew that we had already talked on the Discord, some of my patrons, we were going to watch the Shadow and Bone adaptation together. So I said, well, let me read it. And I thought the first book, it clearly was not made for me. But I was like, I can see why people like this. Book 2 had that same problem I have with all young adult fantasy. The love triangle for 1, and the wish fulfillment for 2, and the biggest thing, the world is collapsing around us. Like, things are literally in just despair. We are on the way to our doom. And the most important thing to our protagonist, how do I choose between these 2 cute boys? That's always going to be something that clearly it works because they sell a shitload of books, but it's not something that's going to get me, obviously. So again, this isn't shocking, guys. I know this was not written for me, So again, I don't really know besides except that we said we were going to watch it together. That why I decided to read that. But you know what? Actually, the adaptation was pretty good. So there we go. Maybe it's just because Ben Barnes is the best. But I shan't be returning to that series. And then this one I love, and I won't be returning to it. This, of course, is by the late, great, legendary vampire queen, Anne Rice. I'm talking about the Vampire Chronicles. Now, I've talked at length about why I love the Vampire Chronicles on there. But, it really fell off about halfway through the series to a point to where I just said, I can't go on anymore. And I walked away, and I only kept collecting them because I had collected them all, and I had some of them signed and things like that. And I wanted to support Anne Rice because she was very, very influential to me as a teenager. Someone that I really, really looked up to. Still think she's an incredible writer. The story really fell off for me. and I just didn't like the direction that it went in. And I've always said, I started a couple years back, like really about 2 years before I started this channel. I went back and I read the original 3 again, and I enjoyed them for the most part, but I couldn't find the urge to keep going because I had said then I'm going to read them all this time, and I just didn't. I love you, Miss Rice. You will always have a place right here. But yeah, Vampire Chronicles, even bringing back Lestat, couldn't get me interested in coming back to that series. This one's rather recent, and it was kind of surprising to me because I thought for sure I would love the Bobaverse. These books, I don't know. I guess I was kind of sold it was like Dresden Files in space. But when I read book 1, I think of We Are Legion, We Are Bob, I think it was called. I thought it was a neat idea of a guy who he gets hit by a car, but they save his brain, and then by the time that like he's able to be brought back, it's a time where like dead people have no rights or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but they basically use his brain to control starships. That's kind of what they do with some of these people that were like really, really smart. And a pretty good idea on paper. However, he falls into that Ready Player One trap, except the part where it was a good story, is where it's just a bunch of Star Wars quotes, or Star Trek quotes, rather, and stuff. And it's just like, man, I love Star Trek as much as the next guy, but I really wish you'd write your own series. It never really clicked for me. It was like, okay, we're just going to keep going around and collecting spaceships and looking for planets, and it was boring. It was boring, and it was nothing but just, again, like I said, if I'm hanging out with my kids and we're just quoting Star Wars back and forth, that's all it felt like it was. So, yeah, that one it missed the mark for me, which is stunning because I really thought this was one that would click for me, but after I finished that first one, I said, I don't think I have any interest in continuing. So, there we go, guys. Last couple here, Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence. I know that one cuts a lot of people deep, and that's one of the earliest reviews on this channel I did for Prince of Thorns, which I liked a lot. I was one of those things where I said, I don't have to like your protagonist to like your book. That's a perfect example. But then it just got worse and worse. Like the protagonist became, where it was just like, you're trying to give him this explanation of why he's a sociopath, but he's just a sociopath. And I think you need to accept that. But it never got better for me. I literally was 200 pages from the end, and I put it down, and I never went back to it. And that was 2 years ago, guys. So, and I think that's what's kind of hindered me from reading any other Mark Lawrence, because the people that I talk to on the channel that love a lot of these same series I love, but they love Broken Empire. It's like, it must be a me thing. And I don't know if it's because so many people compare it to First Law, and I'm like, man, that ain't nothing like First Law. First Law, you wanted to see this character succeed. This meteor could hit the planet, and I'd be like, so I never really. I think the only redeeming character in that story was Makin. Was that his name? Makin? And he was very, very tiny role by the end. So yeah, that would just kind of miss the mark for me. But a lot of people have convinced me to read Book of the Ancestor, and I am going to do that. And Mark Lawrence seems like an awesome guy, and I didn't have any problem with his writing style. I just didn't like his characters in that. And you know what I've said before? You can have the greatest world, the greatest prose, all that stuff. If you don't have characters, I'm not interested in your story. I just never clicked with those characters in that. So that's why I walked away and don't think I'll be picking it up. And the last one, guys, I got to go. Even though I said you need to put some respect on his name, I'm talking about Shannara by Terry Brooks. And this is kind of like Inheritance, where it's nothing that I have anything bad against this series. It's just, I read Shannara trilogy, Sword of Shannara, when I was young, and I don't think that it would work for me at this age now. I read it when I was like 11, and I read it right after Lord of the Rings, when all I wanted was more Lord of the Rings, and that's cool and all, but it's not just because of that. I think that while I think maybe I've aged out of stuff like that, it's also that it's like, 20-something books now? Yeah, I would never finish that. Even if I did decide to start it again, I wouldn't finish that, I don't think. So that one's more of a, this where I'm at in my life. I don't see myself getting into that series again. I may reread the Sword of Shannara one day just to kind of see how it's aged or how it's different, 30 years later. So I don't know. But I do think that we all owe him our respect. And that's why I've kind of talked about that in the channel before, because this genre was almost dead in the 90s or the late 80s when he brought this back. So I will always respect him for that, even if I don't think I would finish that series. I do have a couple of Undecideds. Now, these are ones I can't say for sure I'm never going to finish. But I'm going to kind of go ahead and list them here, because as of right now, I don't see myself having a desire to go back to them. The biggest one, guys, is going to be The Witcher. that's one that I didn't stop reading because I wasn't enjoying the series. I wasn't in the mood for that book. I think it was which one was it? Time of Contempt, I think. Is that the one it was? Yeah, after Blood of Elves, because I like that. Time of Contempt, it just wasn't clicking for me, and I said, maybe I should take a break because I feel like I'm going to end up hate reading it, and I never went back. That's been like 2+ years now. So I said I'd stay ahead of the Netflix show, but it looks like the Netflix show isn't really going to follow the books at all anyway, so who knows? Who knows? But I can't say for sure I'll never go back because I do love that world. I think Sikorsky's a good writer, and I think Geralt's a great character. But it's just another one of those where, like, if I ever have like some free time, hey, what do you want to read? I never find myself saying, ooh, I should go back to Witcher. So there's that. Next one is the Hyperion Cantos. I loved Hyperion. I was a little nonplussed with Fall of Hyperion. And then everyone says Endymion is very, very divisive. That word again. Oh, it's divisive. I don't know if I have any interest in going back to that. So again, I think the Hyperion just set the bar so high that everything that comes after that just kind of be like, I don't know. Plus, I've heard that like he turns the Shrike into like a good guy in that, and I'm like, okay, whatever. King Killer Chronicles. I would, all jokes aside, I said if he puts out book 3, I will go ahead and reread those. It's one of those things where it's like, it's been a decade, guys. I don't know if we're really gonna believe that this is gonna happen. I'm not trying to be negative. It's not like with, when we had to wait 6 years for Dance with Dragons, whereas now it feels real, where it's been over a decade. But it's been longer than Winds of Winter, guys. So it's just, I don't know. Do I have a desire to go back to it? No, I didn't really like the first book. Why would I go back? Especially when people who love that first book say book 2 is at best. So, but I might get swept up in hysteria if book 3 does come out and want to be, in that conversation. So that's why I got to put it under undecided. I don't know if I'll go back to it or not. It really just depends on him. Depends on him, not me. And lastly, the Millennium Trilogy. This is by Stieg Larsson. This is the Lisbeth Salander books, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I love The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. One of the best crime novels ever. I think it's just so good. Such a good mystery. Had me guessing up to the very end. And it was so satisfying, so well done. And then I read The Girl Who Played with Fire, and it was just all right. And it kind of took the wind out of my sails to finish that series. So I've heard The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest is actually, again, that divisive word. Some people love it, some people do not. I do think that Lisbeth is one of the best modern characters in all fiction. I think she's just an amazing character. But I did book 2. I don't know. It separated her and Blomkvist so long that I felt like the magic was gone by the time they reunited in that book. So I don't know. I like that duo, that unlikely alliance that they kind of formed in that first book. It was just very much, fish out of water kind of thing, of different generations being forced to work together kind of thing. I like that a lot. And the second one kind of lost that completely. So, but I went away from the end. I didn't hate book 2, so I can't say that I won't ever go back to it. But as of right now, like I said, I'm not hearing that. Hey, come read me. I'm not hearing that right now. Yes, some of these books do say that to me, guys. So what about you? What are some series that you don't think that you will ever finish? Hey, there's lots of series I like that plenty of people I know have DNF. So it's not meant to be a hate thing. But I'd love to hear your answers instead of telling me why mine suck. But it's going to be what it's going to be when you're out here on the mean streets of YouTube. So guys, drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.